is up, everybody?
Welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast. This is episode 70, and today we're talking about Kurt Cobain.
Yes, conspiracy and chill today, right?
Yes, conspiracy. We haven't done a conspiracy in a while.
No, it's been a while, I think, since we've done anything really conspiracy related.
Well, there's been a real crackdown in the mainstream on conspiracies, and we don't want to get blacklisted and have our content limited.
Yeah, just as things start going well for us, you know, we get banned from YouTube. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, so we've been kind of pumping the brakes on that a little bit, but we thought it would be really fun to look at one that I really believe. I mean,
it's an interesting one for sure. I mean, there's a lot of compelling evidence to suggest that, there's this conspiracy around Kurt Cobain's death, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to address too, when we're talking about conspiracy, the word conspiracy is actually a legal term, which means, two or more people together committing a crime,
right?
Shoplifting could be a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. People, especially millennials, don't understand the word conspiracy.
Yeah, or
people think everything's a conspiracy. It's so
and
funny.
The older generation too, I feel like doesn't understand conspiracy as well. They think it's just wingnuts that are thinking crazy ass shit. But
no, there's compelling evidence. This one's really crazy, and there's a lot of people that don't believe it. So we're really welcome both people to listen to this and just kind of,
be open-minded.
Go over everything, try to look at both sides. And
you just have to be really open-minded about this one because,
because there's definitely a chance it's not real.
Right.
I can't say with 100% certainty that this is truth, you know?
So the conspiracy we're investigating is whether or not Kurt Cobain actually committed suicide or was he murdered?
Yes.
And the official story that many, many, many people believe, the mass majority of people I'd say believe, is that he committed suicide in 94. So
and he may have.
Which he may have. He absolutely could have. But we're going to explore more of the conspiracy side of it. And could it be possible that he was murdered? So
what's the evidence that people have for this?
Yeah, exactly.
Be interesting.
It is going to be very interesting. So let's go ahead and jump right into things. So the first thing that literally went viral this week or a couple of days ago even is this video. It's hilarious. And it shows a little creature being, some people are calling it an alien. Other people are saying it's literally Dobby or Cretan, the house elf from Harry Potter.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
Here's the video.
Wait, was this in a neighborhood on a next door kind of app or neighborhood?
It looks like it's a house security cam.
No, but where was this content posted? Was it
on Twitter?
Oh,
I don't know, just by this random account. Again, this is a random shit, but it's got 30 million views, and a lot of you guys were tweeting us oh my God, have you seen this? This could be evidence of something.
I think a lot of it you were tweeting it to us as a joke though.
Yeah. So here's the video if you haven't seen it yet. It's that's it. Literally 10 seconds. Yep. And what do you think of that? So, I mean,
it looks like bullshit to me.
If you're
it looks
listening,
like a kid, maybe in a costume.
Maybe though, but the legs are too skinny for it to be a kid, I feel like.
So then what is it?
So for those listening, it's literally looks like a door opens because you can see a tall shadow in the right-hand side, and this little creature.
Yeah. All you have to do is go to Twitter and type in Dobby video and you'd find it.
Yeah. Walks out and stumbles all weird and awkwardly, for a couple seconds, and then it ends. The clip just ends. There's no more footage. It's just that short, tiny clip.
Yeah, he just disappears. Yeah.
So is it real or is it fake?
Nah, man. I'm going to say hoax on that one.
Yeah, I don't see why this would be real. It's going
to be a no for me, dog.
Is it funny and entertaining? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I got
quite a laugh out of it.
Yeah, no, I made a joke on Twitter. I said it looks like Dobby just stumbled out of the bar at 3 a.m.
Yeah, and it actually really does.
Because he starts kind of,
it's wobbling around I
don't know. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, that is.
So yeah, let us know what you guys think about that. But the next thing we wanted to talk about is a real scary story about an Ohio doctor who's accused of murdering 25 people with fentanyl.
Jesus.
Yeah, scary stuff. So in one of the largest murder cases in Ohio's history, a doctor was charged this past Wednesday with killing 25 people over 4 years by prescribing fatal doses of fentanyl, which is an extremely powerful opioid, to critical care patients at hospitals in and around Columbus, which this doctor is named Dr. William Hustle. He's 43, but he pleaded not guilty. He said he had tried to provide comfort to dying people, not to kill them. He said, I never made any attempt to euthanize anyone, but patients, families, things like that are saying different about this, and that the amounts were really large in comparison to what you would actually give somebody if you weren't trying to kill them. So like another doctor said that these are very high fentanyl doses for patients without significant opioid tolerance. So you don't need the doses that he was giving. So it's almost like it's malpractice. It's negligent for sure.
Yeah.
But is it murder? Like,
was he a killer?
Right. Was he trying to kill them? It's a hard, I think.
Should he be held responsible? Absolutely. Yes. I don't know. That's really interesting to think about, whether or not he was like purposely trying to kill people, or was he just like being negligent?
And it's a lot. He was giving them huge doses.
Well, then it almost seems like maybe he was like, I mean, it's happened before. I thought I saw another case that was so similar to this. I'm pretty sure, if any of you guys know what I'm talking about, like I read an article about this really recently that was a different guy. Pretty sure he's a nurse too, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know
this kind of stuff has happened before.
Sure. Or like Dr. Death, that neurosurgeon who like did some fucked up shit on people.
Killed people. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, he was administering doses of 500 to 2,000 micrograms of fentanyl, which other doctors are like, this is insane. So a lot of people think he was intentionally like euthanizing them.
Oh, that's wild, man.
But what's even more interesting is that this doctor actually has a criminal record. In 1996, he pleaded guilty to improperly storing a destructive device or pipe bomb at Wheeling Jesuit College in West Virginia.
Doctor?
And he was spent 6 months in jail for that.
What? Okay, I've changed my mind. He's probably killed them on purpose, I feel like. And now they're trying to argue it's just malpractice.
I mean, he's going to get jail time for sure for this. I mean, he faces 25. It's just a matter of
how long?
25 murder charges.
25 murder charges. You'd expect someone to go to jail for life. I'm pretty sure that's what will happen.
Yeah, each of them carries a 15 years to life.
Are they
sentence.
Looking at death penalty or no?
No. The prosecutor said he's not going to seek death penalty. That's really ironic, since it's like he basically gave all these other people the death penalty. Yeah, and a lot of the families are really pissed, obviously. Like, why are you giving him, administering this high of doses? Can
you imagine how, I mean, we know the feeling of being angry at doctors. We've been angry at all my doctors. And God, when my grandpa died recently, like we were treated so badly by the hospital staff. Remember how angry we were just from that? And like, they didn't kill my grandpa. Like they made some questionable decisions that but can you imagine being a family member and finding out they gave way too much fentanyl? I'd be so livid. Which
is a killing machine at high doses. Like it will kill you. It's actually one of the leading causes of death in the country as far as opioids go. It's a crazy
substance.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens when he goes to trial and see what the jury comes up with. But I mean, at a minimum, he's going to spend, I think, some years behind bars for this, because
I do too.
If not the rest of his life.
Well, he better. Let's hope. Like that would be a real failure if he didn't get a serious sentence for this. I honestly think he should get life.
I just think as a doctor, you know, you go to school for all these years. You're supposed to be, you know, be so educated and smart and be able to make, you know, the right decisions for people's health. We put our trust in doctors, right?
Yes.
Or we have the illusion that we should put our trust in them.
It's not even like this was one person or a couple people. This is 25. That's a lot. Like that doesn't look good. So yeah, I think that the law should come down as hard as possible on his ass.
I think it will. I don't think he's definitely not going to be a doctor again.
Yeah. Well, that's obvious.
Yeah.
God, let's hope not.
Yeah. That's crazy stuff though. I mean, you hear more often than not, some of these doctors out there that are doing some really questionable shit.
Yeah.
Even possibly killing people. Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. The nurse. Wasn't there the nurse? Are you talking about the nurse at the nursing home that was like killing people?
Yes, I think he worked at a nursing home.
I can't remember. We saw a 2020 or something about it.
No, it happened like recently though.
Recently?
Yeah,
like this year?
There was another one that was happening. That was another one. I think there's a lot of cases of this happening.
Yeah.
I saw someone sent me an article, like a more recent article of someone getting arrested for this, for wanting to like revive people and like bringing them to like a horrible
It was
and
like
trying to, and they liked the rush. They claimed that they liked the rush of saving people.
I feel like I vaguely
Josh and I
remember
looked
this,
it up
yeah.
and I couldn't find it. Like someone had sent it to me and I just read it and then lost it. But
We'll
I'm
have to
sure
go
it's out
find
there.
it.
Someone will find it. I know.
Yeah, guys, let us know if you want like some episodes about doctors that are straight up like killers or criminals or that do really sketchy shit. Cause I think it's really interesting. And oftentimes I feel like it doesn't, this doesn't get to the masses as much as it should, as far as being aware of who's taking care of your, know, not only your elderly, but also just your own self. Like who are you really trusting with your health? And I mean, obviously not all medical professionals are questionable, but I think you got to have a certain level of caution with anybody. So yeah, really interesting stuff. The next news story I wanted to bring up is NASA is officially opening the International Space Station to tourists.
Yeah, this is cool.
It's really cool. They will now allow regular citizens, not just certified astronauts, on board the International Space Station. But the tickets for this are not cheap. Yeah. NASA will be charging about $35,000 a night for the use of the station's facilities. And that's not what they would charge for the So what's really happening is these aerospace companies, so Amazon's space company, SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, Bigelow Aerospace, they are all building rockets and modular spacecraft to travel to the ISS to deliver these tourists there. So they'll charge you a fee for the transportation, and then it's an additional $35,000 a night with a minimum stay of 30 days.
Wow.
So round trip, you're looking at over $1 million for 30 days in the space station.
I guess if you like had that kind of money,
it
might be worth it for like an experience like that. Like you can't get that anywhere else, obviously.
Hell no, I would love that.
What a crazy experience. I wouldn't. I just feel like it would be I do not want to eat the space food. I don't want it looks like, gosh, we just were talking about last week about how hard it is on your body to go into space, and like what you have to go through as an astronaut. It is not easy. It's not just like taking a trip to France.
No.
It's pretty intense. I don't think I would do it. Josh and I always talk about this. Josh always wants to go to the moon, space, Mars. He's like, sign me up anywhere. I'll go on a mission. And then there's me. I just like want to stay here and live our little life forever.
But wouldn't it be cool though to see like the sunrise on the Earth?
Of course it would be cool. Of course it would be cool. But am I willing to take the risk? No, I have anxiety and I'm just a little bitch like that.
And imagine the claustrophobia you would feel on the space station, as well as traveling there. You're in a tight little thing.
I can't imagine like the nausea I would have. I have the nausea just here on Earth. I can't imagine. No way.
But could it be worth it to be weightless in space for 30 days?
I don't know. 30 days is a long time to be weightless. I think I'd be over it after like 4 hours.
And then you're stuck up there. It's not like you get up there and then you can just be like, all right, I've had enough. I'm done. Send me home.
Yeah.
There's no way to get home for another 30 days. So they're not going to send another rocket up here.
Yeah.
For another 30 days. So I don't know, man. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if like celebrities start doing it though. Those would be the first people, or really famous, businessmen, things like that. Mm-hmm. Be like Justin Bieber's going to the space station.
Wouldn't that be crazy? Like they do like I bet live streaming from space, like celebrities will do streams.
Well, they already do live stream from the space station.
I know they do. I've seen them do it at concerts and stuff, even like live stream down. But God, they did that at a U2 concert in like 2004. But I can see like influencers
or
like
a
doing
YouTuber
live
doing it. Yeah, like Logan Paul going to space.
Oh, let's hope. Please no. Let's send like someone else. Like a good old boy, like David Dobrik.
That'd actually be really entertaining.
Representation.
That'd be super entertaining to watch him.
He'd probably make a sweet vlog.
Oh, yeah. the vlog squad up in the space station for 30 days. That'd be hilarious. Or they or they do a Big Brother in the space station or something.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? But instead of getting evicted, you get thrown out into space.
Yeah, you got to float your way back to the
abyss. Oh my gosh, that one movie.
Like Gravity. Yeah.
Yes.
Get sucked away, just float away, and then no one's coming to get you.
That's a scary thought. Yeah, if you've never seen Gravity, in this movie Gravity, this guy basically just like leaves the space station just like on his own, and he's just a body floating, and he's just like listening to music on his little radio, and he's like, I'm just gonna enjoy the ride till I die, basically.
Till I suffocate.
Yeah, how terrible.
And then
can you imagine the feeling of like just like going off into space? Like, oh my gosh, you'd be so scared. Oh, can't imagine that.
I don't think I would do it until like spaceships were big enough where you could kind of freely walk around in them, where you don't have to be like strapped in. You know, like how in sci-fi movies like Star Wars and Star Trek and stuff, they are able to like walk around like it's no big deal, just cruising around.
Yeah, and they're walking. Like, aren't they supposed to be floating? In those movies, they're always just walking around. Yeah,
they are. They have some sort of anti-gravity thing going on or something. Or they have gravity in there. As soon as they step
out, they're just,
Yeah, that's sci-fi for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, though. So let's go ahead and get into Kurt Cobain, though, because this is a lengthy one, and there's a lot to cover. But before we do, I want to thank our sponsors for today.
So as a human, we need nutrients. And these days, it's actually very hard to get nutrients into our bodies because our food isn't always as fresh as it should be. It doesn't always have the amount of nutrients that it should when it's freshly cut. And then, they have to take it and bring it to the grocery store. And by then, it loses all the good stuff that you need. So even if you have a bunch of kale salads and drinks green smoothies, you're most likely not getting the essential nutrients that you need on a daily basis. This is where Ritual comes in handy. Ritual's essentials have the nutrients that most of us don't get enough from food, all in their clean, absorbable forms. No shady additives, no weird ingredients that can do more harm to your body than good. Just 2 easy to take capsules that provide 9 nutrients that you need to support a strong foundation for your overall health. I've been using Ritual for about a month, and I love how easy it makes taking my vitamins. It's all in one convenient capsule. This is a women's multivitamin, and from D3 to omega-3, Ritual's essential for women and helps fill in gaps in a woman's diet. What's so great about it and so important to me is their capsule has a no nausea design that makes it easy on an empty stomach. There's a mint tab in every bottle that keeps things fresh so you don't get any fishy aftertaste that you normally do when you take a fish oil. You can also get Ritual delivered. A subscription is easy to start and it's easy to snooze. It's only $1 a day to have the essential nutrients that your body needs delivered every month, no strings attached. Better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps of your diet with Essentials for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/mile to start your Ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/mile.
I don't know about you guys, but I love a good home cooked meal. And oftentimes it can be very hard to get a home cooked meal because life is extremely busy, and oftentimes we do not have the time to go grocery shopping, to meal plan, and then cook a home cooked meal every night. So oftentimes we resort to other options that are just not as good. So we were extremely happy to try out the food delivery service from HelloFresh. We have used HelloFresh before in the past, and we have always enjoyed their products. The great thing about HelloFresh is that it allows you to get a home cooked meal without having to do all the meal planning, getting the recipe, going to the grocery store. You don't have to do any of that because it is all done for you. All you have to do is go on their website and literally pick out which meals you want, which one of the things that I love about HelloFresh is they do give you a ton of options. So, all types of food, whether you like meat or whether you're a vegetarian, they have got an option for you, and a delicious one at that. What's also great is they actually ship the boxes straight to your door with the meals for that week. You can choose and customize your plan to fit you and your family's schedule. And yeah, so we had a couple dinners delivered, and I made a delicious chicken cheddar fajitas. Oh yeah, with bell pepper, lime crema, and pickled jalapeno. This was absolutely incredible. I love fajitas, and this was super easy. And one of the best things of all is that HelloFresh recipes are healthy. This is only 680 calories, which is not bad for some bomb fajitas. And best of all, it took under an hour to completely cook and clean this. Oftentimes the meals take around 30 minutes. So if you are interested in trying out HelloFresh, I highly recommend it. For $80 off your first month of HelloFresh, all you have to do is go to HelloFresh.com/milehigher80 and enter code Mile Higher 80. It's like receiving 8 meals for free, or you essentially get your first 4 boxes for $20 off. That is an unbeatable deal. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/Mile Higher 80.
So we all know that scent is actually normally tied to memories. There are so many memories in my childhood where I associate specific smells of like soap or food with a memory. And there's this one soap that every time I smell it, I don't know what kind of soap it is, but when I smell it, I always know that it reminds me of this beach house I used to go to as a kid in the summer, and it reminds me of my grandparents and just brings me right back. So I wanted to talk about Fleur and how you can create some special memories with their perfect fragrances. So Fleur is different than most fragrances on the market today. All of their products are hypoallergenic, cruelty-free, vegan, and sustainably sourced with recycled materials, which is why we love Fleur. All of their scents have different notes that are part of nature. So it really brings you back to the earth. And we also love that as earth signs over here. Their fragrances smell amazing. They're very clean. They're very bright. They all are very different. My personal favorite is Greylock. It's actually kind of a blend of my 2 favorite things, the mountains and the ocean. It's a blend of pine and sea. What we also love about Fleur is it can be used by anyone. It is gender neutral, so male and females can use this. We love how transparent Fleur is. They list all their ingredients. There's no sketchiness behind the brand at all. It's very upfront. So make new scent memories today with Fleur. Go to fleur.com today and use the code MILEHIGHER to get 20% off your first Fleur sample set. You can pick 3 scents to try and then get credit towards 1 full-size bottle of your favorite. That's code MILEHIGHER at fleur.com and your first 3 Fleur fragrance samples for 20% off. So that's PHLUR.com.
So Kurt Cobain. Let's talk about Kurt Cobain. Talk about his background. Where did he come from? Who is Kurt Cobain? If you don't know who he is, which there might be some people that don't know who Kurt Cobain is.
I did not know that much about him before I started researching him for my original video. This was one of the first conspiracies I've covered on my channel like so long ago. And it really, like, it's crazy. My conspiracy videos just don't get a lot of views over time. Like initially when my subscribers get it, they'll get it. But then the
After
views
that,
like YouTube doesn't suggest conspiracy stuff to people at all.
No, they hide it, in fact.
So,
and this is one of those that gets really pushed under the surface. And if you even talk about the conspiracy or try to make a documentary about it or anything like that, you can even have that shit shut down. Like,
by Courtney.
Right. Who was his wife. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about his background. So Kurt Cobain was born on February 20th, 1967 in Aberdeen, Washington. He was a Pisces, which is very fitting for him.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that people said about Kurt Cobain was that he was just a really chill dude. He listened. He was like a listener. Everybody said he would just sit there and listen to you. Like he wouldn't be that
a deep guy.
A deep guy. Lots of things going on inside his head and deep thinking.
Really artistic, like a really genuine person, like a real person. And yeah, he's such a Pisces. I know a lot of people don't believe in astrology, but for me, he's always the one I think about when I think of a Pisces. Kurt Cobain. Pisces also have a lot of addiction issues. They have a lot of life challenges, issues in relationships, very emotional lives. They can have depression, like things like that. They're very emotional.
They're water sign, right? Yeah. Which makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. His birth charts is one of the most interesting celebrity birth charts out there. So if you ever want to look, just look it up. It's pretty interesting, but
it definitely is very fitting for him. But his parents were Wendy, was his mother, and Donald was his father. And, they were pretty, average family. She was a cocktail waitress and his dad was a mechanic. And his family actually did have some musical background to it. His maternal uncle, Chuck Freidenberg, played in a band called the Beachcombers, and his aunt Marie Earle played guitar and performed in bands throughout where they lived. And his great uncle Delbert had a career as an Irish tenor, making an appearance in the 1930 film King of Jazz, which I think that's how it is for a lot of musicians. Like famous musicians come from some sort of musical background, in their early childhood that has influence on them to want to play the guitar. But as a child, Kurt was described as being a happy and excitable young boy. He also exhibited sensitivity and care, which is right along the line with the Pisces. But his talent as an artist was evident from an early age, as he would draw his favorite characters from films and cartoons, such as Creature from the Black Lagoon and Donald Duck, in his bedroom. Very artsy.
Very.
Did a lot of art, and all the way up into his adult life. Did paintings. Very abstract, very like out there, almost trippy type artwork.
Yeah, and he was just a creative person in general, because he was really into like writing as well.
But he began developing interest in music from a very young age. According to his aunt, he began singing at age 2. And then at age 4, he started playing the piano and singing. He liked to listen to artists like the Ramones and the Electric Light Orchestra. And when he was 9 years old, his parents divorced. And later on, this divorce did have a profound effect on his life, which with anybody. I mean, divorce is hard for any family, any child, especially a young child. It does have you're ripping apart the family unit, and I think it can create a lot of anger and resentment in, a young child against your parents, and, kind of make you rebellious and stuff.
Definitely. It's painful. It's very painful. Like, I went through it when I was over 21, and it was painful. I can't imagine how it would be as a 9-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're still trying to figure things out, and all of a sudden your somewhat stable situation becomes unstable.
Right.
And, if you don't have really good parents that are going to, make sure and put you first and make sure you're okay and understand everything that's going on, it can be really, really detrimental. And that's kind of what happened with Kurt, because his attitude kind of changed. He became pretty rude towards adults during his youth, and he began actually bullying another boy at school. And because of this, his father decided to take him to a therapist who concluded that he would benefit from a single family environment. And that's when on June 28th, 1979, Kurt's mother granted full custody to his father. However, Kurt really started to rebel, and this became overwhelming for his father. So he placed him in the care of family and friends, which I think is just I think that made it worse. I think it made it worse to take him away from his father.
Yes, I do too.
And start bouncing him around, just because.
It's hard to say from like an outsider's perspective on a family, but
it's true. It might have been bad enough to do that.
Yeah.
But that's when Kurt actually started living with a born again Christian family. Family friend, Jesse Reed. And soon Kurt became a devout Christian and regularly attended church services, which obviously later on he renounced Christianity and became pretty, anti-religion. But that was impactful on him. And I would say, was a spiritual guy throughout his whole life in some sense, obviously with a band name like Nirvana, which we'll talk about more. But in school, Kurt Cobain became friends with a gay student at school and suffered bullying from peers who assumed that he was also gay. Actually, in an interview, he had said that he liked being associated with a gay identity because he did not like people. And people would leave the gay kids alone.
Yeah.
And so they left him alone.
Yeah. And he wanted like nothing to do with anybody. He was so like isolated. Remember at one point he talked about how he even like thought he would end up being like he thought everyone thought he would end up shooting up a school or something. Like he was like bullied.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. He was kind of that kid that never like kind of fit in and really didn't know where he belonged. Like,
yeah. And so he became kind of antisocial and like wanted to stay away from everyone. Understandably.
Yeah. During his second year in high school, Kurt began living with his mother back in Washington. And 2 weeks before graduation, he dropped out of high school after realizing he did not have enough credits to graduate. And then at that point, Kurt was kicked out of his house after failing to find employment. And so he started staying with friends and sometimes even resorted to sleeping in the streets. So like from high school, it got pretty rough for him. He was kind of just aimlessly trying to figure things out. Obviously he had his love for music, and that's really what he latched onto was that love for music. Because after he had dropped out in high school in early 1985, he formed the band Fecal Matter.
Oh,
cool name, right?
Interesting. That's gross.
But it was that evolution of, getting into a band and seeing what that's like, and really probably finding his identity in music and, finding other like-minded individuals, where, he eventually went on to meet his bandmate from Nirvana, Chris Novoselic, who was also really into punk rock. And the two of them practiced playing music together, and Kurt eventually was convinced to create a band with him. So once Chris joined the band, they got their first drummer, Aaron Burkhard, and that's when Nirvana was formed in 1987. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that he named his band Nirvana.
Yeah, I love that.
Because even though he wasn't like into Christianity, you know that he got a taste of spirituality through that. But he was very interested in Buddhist philosophy and Jainism, which is kind of a denomination of Buddhism.
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know what nirvana means, nirvana in Buddhism is a transcendent state in which there is neither suffering, desire, nor sense of self.
Yeah. Like it's like reaching a state of nirvana when you're a monk.
You're released from the effects of karma and the cycle of death and rebirth. It's the final goal of Buddhism. It's
like the white aura we were talking about in the last vlog.
I thought that's like one of my favorite things about, Nirvana and Kurt Cobain is the fact that they, like, it wasn't just like, oh, that's a cool hipster name to call their band.
They were deep.
They're very deep, and their music had some very deep, messages to it too. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, I never really listened to Nirvana. I didn't even know who they were, probably because their music is pretty, explicit.
Yeah, your parents blocked you from that.
Listen to it. Because like my first intro into the punk rock kind of rock genre was Green Day.
Yeah,
which a lot of us was Green Day. Yeah. When I was like in like 7th or 8th grade, I started listening to Green Day.
4th, 5th grade, American Idiot time. Whenever that came out.
No, it was earlier than that. Yeah, it was like 6th grade or so.
I think
American Idiot came out when we were in 6th grade. I remember when that album was released. One of the best albums for sure.
Yeah, it was in 6th grade. You're right. I do remember that. No, September 2004.
Which obviously Nirvana was way before that. But and that was the thing is I feel like I missed out on a lot of like really good rock music from, the 90s and late 80s, like Nirvana. Mm-hmm. I mean, my personal taste isn't, I'm not really into like punk rock or grunge. Like that's their sound is like kind of grunge.
Right.
Rock.
Yeah. I'm not a super big like fan of Nirvana music. There's a couple songs I like, but like,
I mean, of course, Smells Like Teen Spirit. I mean, everybody knows that one. Yep. I had that on Rock
classics
Band.
And
I used to remember playing the drums to that on Rock Band. That was a good one.
Yeah. But I can definitely respect it. It's good music.
Better than some of these mumble rappers these days.
Oh my God.
Better than Lil Pump.
Jeez.
So yeah, they started Nirvana, and Nirvana, they started, working on music, and eventually they got Dave Grohl to join as their drummer, which I didn't really know that. I don't know why I never put the two together, but yeah, Dave Grohl ended up being their drummer later on. And in 1991, their major debut album was Nevermind was released. And that's where the song Smells Like Teen Spirit was their top single. And that's kind of how they went mainstream. That song like blew up.
Yep.
And still, I think that gets streams today. But yeah, since their debut, Nirvana sold over 25 million albums in the US alone and over 80 million worldwide. They really were kind of pioneers of the alternative rock scene. And I think the net worth of Kurt Cobain alone is like 400 million or something.
Oh yeah.
It's some ridiculous amount.
He had a lot of money towards the end of his life, like a lot. His estate was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me look up what he was worth.
I think it's 450 million. But because of his music and because of just how profound it was and how well it sold, after his death, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He got all sorts of achievements.
Okay, so I think his net worth's grown a ton, but at the time of his death, it was 50 million.
50?
Yeah, people's net worth grows a ton when they die young, or that always happens. But
I saw an estimate; it was like 400 million. That's a lot.
Yeah, crazy. But he didn't show it at all. He lived in a really, really regular ass house and lived a really normal life. He didn't like flashy stuff.
Well, especially before he met Courtney, right?
Yeah. And didn't she like buy like a fancy car at one point? He made her take it back. Yeah.
And she was the one that wanted like the nice lake house up in Washington that they had, kind of the mansion or whatever.
Yeah.
And she was the one that wanted to, I'm getting ahead of myself, but she really elevated their lifestyle because he was just such a simple dude. Did not care. They would like trash their guitars.
Very
and
low
stuff.
Key. Yeah. Well, he had no attachment to material
No, money
stuff.
didn't mean anything to him.
Literally nothing. He thought it was like foolish that people cared so much about money. Actually, it really bothered him.
So one of the aspects too that is hugely a part of his life is obviously the drug use. It's been, I guess, said that he started smoking marijuana, I think at like age 13.
That's
and
so
not
young.
that led him to other things, but it could have, especially that young when you're not, mature enough to really understand it. And so
use responsibly. Yeah.
So, I mean, he did a lot of drugs, a lot of different things, and primarily heroin was his sort of drug of choice, but he did a lot of stuff. He did LSD, he did a ton of LSD. He did a lot of other types of psychedelics and things like that. But getting into the 90s, in January 1990, this is when Kurt meets a woman named Courtney Love at a nightclub in Portland, because Courtney was actually a musician in another band that was performing there with where he was performing in Nirvana.
Is this before she was in Hole?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. I don't know how many bands she's had. I don't really care how many bands she's had.
I don't really care about
she was
her
in
either.
a band, and that's where they met. They met like kind of like afterwards, and it's been said that she kind of pursued him.
Right.
And he was like,
yeah, not into
what
her
are you doing?
at
Like,
first.
I'm not really like looking for that. Like,
yeah.
But she was very persistent with him.
Yeah. Very forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He would actually like break off dates with her and really tried to distance himself from her at the beginning. But this was also around the time when he was really starting to get into heroin use. And the reason for this that he says is because he suffered from chronic bronchitis and intense physical pain due to an undiagnosed chronic stomach condition.
Yeah, he had really bad stomach problems, and it helps with pain.
It's a painkiller. It's an opioid.
Yeah.
Right.
So when painkillers aren't enough, people go to heroin.
And I mean, if anything is going to take your pain away, it's going to be heroin, but at a cost.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like.
And so his first experience with heroin occurred sometime in 1986. It was administered to him by a local drug dealer in Tacoma, Washington, who had previously supplied him with oxycodone and aspirin. So painkiller. So it probably was like, hey, try these. And then those didn't work for his stomach condition. So he jumped up to heroin. And by the end of the 1990s, his use developed into a full-fledged addiction.
Yeah.
Which... heroin's one of those drugs. I mean, I've never done heroin, but I know that's extremely addictive, and it will suck the life from you. Like it completely changes you. It completely can send you down a dark path.
It's a serious drug.
Hard to get off of. Yeah.
Very hard to get off of. I've have several family members who are addicted to heroin, sadly, and it's just brutal, man. I mean, seen people try everything, and it's so addicting. It's so intense. It completely takes over your life.
It's supposed to be like the craziest high you can possibly have, but it's like,
imagine.
At what cost do you want that high? And once you do it once, you can hook you. So don't do heroin.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So as time goes on, the two are obviously bonded not only over drug use, but music, most importantly. Like they were both really into music, and I'm sure that was attractive for Kurt, with Courtney, being a musician as well. And so they got to know each other, and they started getting closer and closer. And by the late 1991, the two were often together and would bond through their drug use as well, through heroin. There was that one clip, I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. It's in some, I don't know if it's a movie or a documentary or something, but there's a clip of them kind of like playing around with each other when they're just like high as a kite.
Yes. Yeah. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember. I feel like it was when they were in a hotel room at like in Italy or something. Was
it from their Rome trip? Was that what it was from?
I don't think so. Here, I'll try to find it.
Yeah. See if you can find it. Cause I Googled it and I could not find the clip. Cause it's kind of interesting. It definitely gives you kind of a perspective on their relationship and how they were when they were, using drugs together.
Oh, I found it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Why don't you interview us? Kurt and Courtney. Sassy 2.
How does it feel to be fast? Like in the fast lane?
At the height of their drug abuse. Damn, if I wasn't so needle sick, I'd be on tour with Guns N' Roses right now. Man. Me and Axel would be whooping it up, snake dancing across the universe.
Dancing across the stage together, singing Nazareth songs.
But I'm too goddamn music, man.
Are you fucked up, baby? Let me just be your girl. Let me just be your girlfriend. When I'm good in my anus, and it kinda was hate. Put it in my anus, and it kinda was hate. Put it in my anus, and it kinda was hate. So put it in my belly, and it kinda was smelly. I wanna be your girlfriend. I wanna be your girlfriend. I wanna ride your Bradmobile, baby. I wanna know how you really feel, yeah. I wanna ride in your Bradmobile. I wanna shoot up in your Bradmobile, 'cause put it in my belly and I feel sexy, but
I did do heroin when I was pregnant, and then I stopped. And I knew she would be fine.
come on!
Yeah, so they're definitely doing heroin.
Did you hear that quote at the end? Wow. Wow.
Which most people are pretty sure she lied about being
Yeah.
off heroin.
She probably did
so yeah.
heroin the whole time she was pregnant.
Yeah. So
I knew she would be fine. Oh my God.
yeah, that's what it'll do to you, man. I mean, they're so fucked up in that.
Yep.
So through all of that, they were just dating and doing drugs and living life, and they decided to get married. They got married in Hawaii, actually, Waikiki Beach on February 24th, 1992.
Beautiful.
They were wearing, and he was wearing like a green, like checkered, like pajamas. I think it was either pajamas or, yeah, it was green flannel pajamas.
Wow.
At their wedding.
Nice. Hell yeah.
And they were both said that they were going to try to like make a pact to get sober before they had because she was pregnant to have her daughter.
Yeah.
And many people think that she definitely did not get sober.
No.
Before her daughter, because later on we find out in life she had addiction issues as well.
She did. Francis. Sorry.
Not
Frankie.
Francis. And at this time, like Nirvana is just like surging. It's super popular. And after the wedding, though, Kurt went into kind of a funk.
Yes.
He had no desire to tour.
Yep.
And just
like a music funk specifically.
Yeah,
like he was really feeling disconnected from the music industry.
Yeah. Because I'm sure it was starting to put a lot of pressure on him to like oftentimes the music industry will try to change your music in order to put out the music they want.
Popular. The more popular you get, though, the more people's hands are going to be in your work and trying to shape you and put pressure on you. And obviously, it's just such a cutthroat industry that it's filled with a lot of like snakes and stuff. And I think it was really just getting to him all the, fakeness of it because he was so real that it was just overwhelming for him, I think. He wanted to like take a step back.
It was music and art was how Kurt Cobain expressed himself to the world.
Absolutely.
And to himself. And and when
Such
you take away a true artist's form of expression, it can really send them into a spiral. As we've seen with a lot of artists. And when they feel like they don't have
control of their own art.
Absolutely. So that's exactly what it did pretty much. Courtney said they went on a binge in 92. We did a lot of drugs. We got pills. Then when we went down to Alphabet City and Kurt wore a hat and I wore a hat, and we copped some dope. Then we got high and went to SNL. After that, I did heroin for a couple months. So yeah, I mean, they were high a lot of the time. But their daughter, actually, Frances Cobain, was born on August 18th, 1992. And the couples had made intermittent attempts to getting clean. And in March 1992, they enrolled in separate detox programs. But within days, they would check out and dive back into their addictions because heroin is just so fucking hard to get off of. A lot of people relapse. Kurt had briefly considered quitting Nirvana so he could focus on fatherhood, but he didn't. And despite his good intentions, he couldn't quit his drug addicts either. So
his drug addiction.
Yeah, exactly. So prior to a performance at the New Music Seminar in New York City in July 1993, Kurt Cobain suffered a heroin overdose. Rather than calling for an ambulance, Courtney injected Cobain with naloxone to bring him out of his unconscious state, which then Kurt proceeded to perform with Nirvana, giving the public every indication that nothing was wrong, which is crazy. I can't even imagine like overdosing and then like
I tried to just
going
act
out
like
there and
everything's
giving
normal.
a show. Like,
dude, you know how many celebrities do that though? And like try
lot.
to keep that shit under wraps.
yeah.
But who is it? Demi Lovato had she had a heroin overdose and had to they didn't act like everything was fine, but everything's back to normal now. I kind of thought she would take a step back from the music industry and stuff, but she's had multiple heroin overdoses and they do try to hide it at first, but TMZ always finds out.
Yeah, I know. Fucking TMZ.
Yeah. But I'm sure, especially in these days, those rock stars, everyone was doing it. There's so many overdoses we probably don't even know about.
Oh yeah. And so much
It was
drugs
easier to hide
too.
it back then too.
It was easier to get away with and hide for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So later on in March 1993, the band was actually on tour in Munich, Germany. And on March 1st, Kurt got really sick and ended up being diagnosed with bronchitis and severe laryngitis. So he was set to perform on tour there and stuff. He went to the doctors. They're giving him throat spray, trying to get his voice back.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's
as an
the
artist,
worst.
that's the worst thing that could
Can't
happen
imagine.
to you.
Yeah. Stressful.
So he ended up flying to Rome the next day for medical treatment, and Courtney came with him. This was March 3rd, 1994. And that same day, Kurt ended up in a coma at the hospital. And this is where Courtney said this was a suicide attempt.
Yes.
He had accidentally taken too many painkillers due to him having, the throat issues of influenza and fatigue. And so he actually went into a coma, which again, there's conflicting reports about whether he actually swallowed 50 pills or whatever. I think it was.
What was her story? That they went out and saw stuff in Rome all day. They had this super romantic day, and he was hoping they would have sex at the end of the day or something, according to her.
Yeah.
And they came back and probably shot up or did something. And she got too high and passed out. And he got so upset about her doing that after this perfectly good day, she tried to seem like he was so emotionally unstable that he had this great day. But then at the end, he decided to take all these pills.
Right.
Which it's very possible that he just overdosed on accident. And she's trying to make it look like a suicide.
She was trying to tie it to a suicide attempt versus it just being
it's not
an
she said that
overdose.
when it was happening. It was after he had passed that she really started pushing that story.
Which is the interesting part about this whole narrative about him committing suicide. Because then a few days later, on March 18th, 1994, Courtney and Kurt had a domestic dispute, which escalated into near disaster. After police officers arrived at the scene, which were called by Courtney, of course, she told them that her husband had locked himself in a room with a .38 caliber revolver and said he was going to kill himself.
So that's another one that we have never figured out the true story about what happened with that.
Yeah, I mean, we do know the cops came there.
Yes.
Again, this is her interpretation of what's happening with Kurt.
You have to believe a lot of what she says, which is hard to believe her when she's...
Yeah, especially later on when you find out, more about her and all of this. But the police officers confiscated the gun and 3 others along with a bottle of various unidentified pills. Later that night, Kurt told them that he hadn't actually been planning to take his own life. He said, "No, I wasn't. What are you talking about?" So she's she's literally blowing out of proportion or escalating it from him just overdosing because he's taking a bunch of pills versus actually trying to end his life because he's suicidal. She's taking it there. So because of all this, on March 25th, roughly 10 friends, including bandmates Chris Novoselic and Pat Smear, Nirvana manager John Silva Billig, longtime friend Dylan Carlson, Courtney, and Goldberg gathered at Kurt's home on Seattle's Lake Washington Boulevard to take a different approach with a new intervention counselor. As a part of the intervention, Courtney threatened to leave Kurt. And Smear and Novoselic said they would break up the band Nirvana if he didn't check into rehab. After a tense 5-hour session in the 2-day process, Kurt went to the basement with Smear where they rehearsed some new material. Courtney had hoped to coax Kurt into flying to Los Angeles with her so that the couple could check into rehab together. Instead, she wound up on the plane with the manager at the end of the first day of the intervention, which the whole time all this happened, the couple does have a nanny, right?
Right.
Nicknamed Callie.
Yes.
His real name is Michael Dewitt, right?
Michael Dewitt. He looks like such a strange character for being a nanny. Like, he's probably the last person I'd be like, oh yeah, that looks like a nanny.
Yeah.
When I first was researching about this and I heard there was this nanny guy involved, I pictured like I pictured like a Manny, like, like a nice man, like the guy in This Is Us, like,
yeah, exactly.
the Manny, like that's what I thought. And then he was like this grungy looking tattooed, like I'm pretty sure his gauges. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was kind of an interesting choice for a nanny. Mm-hmm. So,
especially when you have money to go get like the best nanny you could possibly.
Yeah, it seemed like they were just like, yo, dude, you want to be our nanny? Or like some friend they had. Yeah. They had some connection to him. I can't remember. He was like their friend though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a personal friend. But when Courtney leaves to go to Los Angeles without Kurt, she later on says she regrets leaving Kurt alone, because this is when things kind of start unfolding. So after a stop in San Francisco, Courtney flew to Los Angeles. And on the morning of the 26th, she checked into the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills and began an outpatient program to detox from tranquilizers. Back in Seattle, Kurt stopped by Dylan Carlson's, his friend's condominium, on March 30th to ask for a gun because Kurt said there were trespassers on his property. And this is where Dylan said, this is the whole like going to get the gun with his friend Dylan. And Dylan said at this time he seemed normal. We'd been talking. Plus I'd loaned him guns before. Dylan believes Kurt didn't want to buy the shotgun himself because he was afraid the police would confiscate it, since they had taken his other firearms after the domestic dispute that he had had earlier, which makes sense. I mean, why he wanted, because the shotgun was registered under Dylan and not Kurt, but it was Kurt's gun. So that's when the two of them, they went to the gun store and they bought the 6-pound Remington 20 gauge shotgun and a box of ammunition, which Kurt gave Dylan in cash. So Dylan said that he was going out to LA and it seemed kind of weird that he was buying the shotgun before he was leaving. So I offered to hold on to it until he got back. Kurt, however, insisted on keeping the shotgun himself. The police believe that Kurt dropped the weapon off at his home and then left Seattle to check himself into rehab. Smear and a Gold Mountain employee met Kurt at the Los Angeles airport and drove him to the Exodus Recovery Center in Marina del Rey, California. So that was the rehab facility where he checked in. And what's weird is that the rehab facility was unaware of Kurt's history of depression and alleged prior attempts at suicide. Yeah. So he was just like another dude coming in, checking himself in for rehab. They didn't know about all the prior events that had happened and whether they were suicide attempts or not. We don't know. But Kurt spent 2 days at this 20-bed clinic, and on April 1st, he called Courtney, who was still at the Peninsula, and he quote unquote said, "Courtney, no matter what happens, I want you to know that you made a really good record." Courtney later told the Seattle newspaper.
That's according to her, though, right?
This is according to her. This is her recollection. Doesn't that
sound very weird that she's like, and then he told me I did great? Like,
yeah.
And so this isn't the only case of like her saying that he said something or did something that's just like basically him acting like the sun shines out of her ass, which in reality, we find out they were on the verge of divorce. Like we'll get more into that, but
domestic disputes, dude. They were like fighting it out. Yeah.
They were getting divorced. Like, Kurt wanted a divorce. That is true. So it's very odd. Like, why would he be like talking so highly of her all the time? And it always comes from fucking her. Yeah,
that's what she says, is that he told her that she made a really good record. And she said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Just remember, no matter what, I love you." And that was the last time Courtney spoke to her husband, according to her. It was that phone call. So apparently while Kurt was in detox, some of his friends would come visit him, and all of them would say that there was no indication to them that he was in a negative or suicidal state of mind. That's like one of the most important things is like, I mean, I guess not everybody has signs of like committing suicide. It's not, it can be a split impulsive decision to do that.
Oftentimes there is signs, but
there
yes,
is, yeah.
there definitely are cases of people who everyone around them's like, I had no idea.
Right.
People are good at hiding pain. Especially when you don't want to like have to answer questions about it or deal with it or talk about it. Like, why would you tell people you're struggling? Or there's not always signs.
And there was instances where he would tell people that he wanted to kill himself.
Right. But
in the past, but it was like in reference to
his stomach pain.
Right.
He was saying it makes me want to kill myself. Like, and then once they got that figured out, which they did, he saw doctors and they got his whole stomach issues figured out. And he did an interview with MTV where he was like, it's all back to normal. And I'm like, so happy. I'm so grateful to not. God, my hair's,
because
like,
he had so like years of having issues getting a doctor to prescribe the right
couldn't eat anything.
medication.
It was like barely eating. Like I've said so many times, I have a lot of health issues, but I tell Josh all the time, I'm really glad I don't have stomach issues. I have serious compassion for people with stomach problems, like chronic stomach problems. It sounds just terrible. Oh, it's horrible, man.
Oh, I can't even
painful.
imagine. When I get cramps in my stomach once in a while, I'm like, this is the worst.
Right? And it's not even nearly what other people
Where you're
have.
like
And they have it all the
doubled over.
time.
Oh God, I couldn't even imagine. Like,
yeah. Or every time you eat, like no matter what you put in your body makes you sick. There are people like that. And then they like lose a ton of weight. He had lost a ton of weight. He was really sick. So that's what he was referring to. And he said kill himself. But according to his friends, he never made a statement that I'm like, I'll kill myself or I want to kill myself. But he definitely doesn't. I will say, I don't see Kurt Cobain and think he would never kill himself because he is such a deep and emotional person. He's very in his thoughts. I wouldn't completely rule it out either. Like it wouldn't shock me if someone like him did that, you know? It's not like he was the, super positive guy. Like he definitely did have all these problems. It would make sense.
It did. I mean, he did have a very turbulent past and just his, some of his childhood into his adult and obviously the drug use and
just the way he was, dude.
Things.
You can hear him in interviews. He was so in his head about everything, like thinking about everything. Like people that are like that, where they overthink everything and people bother them and the world bothers them so much. They get like, it's a lot to deal with emotionally in your head to like handle and
could have benefited from a therapist for sure.
Definitely. But I think that there's a chance that Courtney may have realized this, people wouldn't be shocked if Kurt Cobain ended up either overdosed or killing himself.
Well, and that's the thing is like bandmates, some of the people that are closest to him to this day believe he committed suicide and that the whole murder conspiracy is just like crazy. Is like,
and they might be right. It might be crazy. I mean, the thing is that Courtney Love Courtney Love is a little crazy. Let's just all, whether she did this or not, she's still a little crazy. So it definitely leaves you thinking like there's enough here, but it could also just be like her bizarro behavior that gives you all these reasons to think.
Well, and I mean,
there's a lot more evidence. We haven't even gotten into any of the evidence really yet, but
yeah. And I mean, when you look at Courtney Love too, and you look at her past, it's also very turbulent. I can't remember the exact details, but she went through a lot as well.
Yeah.
She had a really rough past and had a lot of things happen that really influenced her behavior.
Parents separating and living with different people over time. And
which I mean, and a lot of that goes into the music too. Like that type of music is a lot of times very angry and very, rough,
Right.
It's kind of got some anger and passion behind it. It's a way of expressing that, the things that they went through, the pain that they feel. And obviously the heroin's going to change your brain too, as Dr. Phil likes to say, it changes
it is. It changes your brain chemistry. Some drugs do change your brain.
It can completely like rewire your neuropathic pathways and things like that. So it's very possible that it could, the reason I'm saying this is because you said she's crazy. Like she could be an element of crazy.
Yeah. And she's doing stuff from a young age.
A lot of different things. So it's, it makes, the suicide thing does make sense. But while Kurt was in rehab, he was only there for like a day or two and literally like, I think it was a night or two in, he decides to leave and climbs over a 6-foot high fence to escape the facility. And that's when he went to the airport and then flew back to Seattle.
Wow, dude, she's a Cancer moon and sun. God, what a crazy emotional relationship they must have had.
No
That's
wonder.
Intense.
Very intense.
Very intense.
They're like riding this roller coaster together where they're like up and down and crying and happy. And yeah, God. So this is, at this point, this is where Kurt goes missing, quote unquote.
His moon, by the way, is a Cancer too.
Mm-hmm.
Pisces, Cancer. Lot of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
It's just an emotional tornado.
Yeah, pretty much.
God.
Pretty much.
And this is when things start getting a little weird. So Kurt leaves, goes back to Seattle, and goes missing. Courtney hasn't heard from him. And literally the next day after he goes missing and refuses to talk to anybody, Courtney cancels his credit cards and then hires private investigators to track him down.
Yeah, but the strange thing is she like sends private investigators to go look for him, but she doesn't go herself. She's like out of town working. She said she's busy with work.
Yeah,
so
she had a work obligation, she said.
Yeah, and so she couldn't go find her husband. Like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. That's such a lie.
Especially when you know the state of mind he's in.
Yeah, like
if
no.
he escapes
There's
from
no way I'd be like, oh yeah, Josh is missing, but I gotta work, so I'm gonna send someone else to look for his ass.
Yeah.
That's so weird. That has always bothered me so much.
Mm-hmm. It's very suspicious. And this is where things get kind of fishy. Like it kind of get sketchy as far as her decisions that she makes. Because not only that, but then Kurt's mom, Wendy, actually files a missing persons report in her name because she said she had been afraid for her son's safety. But didn't you say you had a tidbit on that?
Yes, she filed this report in the mom's name. Courtney filed it though. His mom never filed a missing persons report on him. So that made people think, like, it was reported in the news, Kurt Cobain's mom files missing report on him.
Right.
So that looks like, you know, people are taking it more seriously when his mom said that. And it takes another person into the whole situation. It's not just Courtney that assumes he's missing and stuff.
Right.
Why would you file it under his mom's name when you're married to him? There's zero reason to do that.
Unless you're setting something up.
Yeah, exactly.
Or setting a plan into motion.
And she never did. The mom never even knew he was like missing.
Yeah.
Well, she might have known. I don't know if they like talked, but she didn't file the report.
Because this is when they really started spinning the story about the suicide, or really pumping that up, you know?
Yes.
They told the police that Kurt might be suicidal and suggested they look for him in a particular 3-story brick building described as a location for narcotics. And this was on April 4th when the missing persons report is filed. And the police believe that Kurt wandered around town with no clear agenda in his final days, though they suspect he stopped by a gun shop to buy more rounds for ammunition. Neighbors say they spotted Kurt in a park near his house during this period, looking ill and wearing a really thick jacket. Kurt is also believed to have spent a night at his summer home in a nearby Carnation with an unidentified friend, which a lot of this is like kind of unconfirmed based upon what other people have said. Like, we don't really know exactly what he was doing, I don't believe, in his final days, which is really, really interesting. Because I mean, it's like, well, how did she know that he was going to escape and go back to Seattle though? Like, if we were trying to spin a conspiracy of he was murdered.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's a point where I'm like, how would she know to set a plan into motion of setting up a suicide? So the conspiracy in simple terms is that they staged a suicide overdose for a murder. It was like a murder for hire type thing where they staged it to look like he just committed suicide and took a bunch of heroin, which is very possible.
Yeah.
But how would she have known if it was a murder for hire? How would she have known he was going to do that? Or well, she could have been having this in plan for a long time. Yeah, that's what the private investigator said.
Yeah, like she could have had someone waiting around, following his every move, and they were just kind of keeping tabs on him, waiting for a good time. And then this was a good time, especially if she had people out looking for him. Someone could have easily found him, spotted him, followed what he was doing.
True.
Like it's not impossible. It's not like this. No. This cancels her out.
No, not at all. It's a window of opportunity that opens up, and maybe she was ready.
Yeah. It seemed like she kind of knew the marriage was going downhill. And, you know, she forced her way into their marriage in the beginning. Like, it seems like she's kind of always...
What were her intentions, you think?
Yeah, I don't... let your mind wander.
I mean, I think she possibly married him for the boost in fame and
I think
obviously the money.
Yeah.
And she's one of those people, though, that has a huge ego and wanted to be kind of top dog. You know, I think she wanted to be the more famous one. And I think it was hard for her that Kurt was more famous than she was. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you think about the whole conspiracy, like, wouldn't she wanted to surpass him. And one way to do that is for him to be gone.
Right.
Plus, she is married to him and inherits this estate of his.
Yeah, and which we're totally speculating right now.
We're speculating. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't know for sure any of this. We don't really know for sure much of anything as far as his death and all of this because none of it's been released. So Kurt wanders around, and this is when we get to April 6th. People have no idea where he is. No one's heard from him. Again, Tom, the PI, flies up to Seattle to start looking, hired by Courtney to go look for him. And that's when they actually go up and meet or search the house with one of Kurt's friends, Dylan Carlson. So the PI and Dylan Carlson go and basically go into the house and look for him because they're trying to see if he's there. And they search the entire house and they don't find any trace of him. And Dylan mentioned while they were searching that the house was very clean. And then 20 hours later, they go back and search the house again. And this time they found a note for Kurt written by the male nanny.
This is the weirdest thing.
The nanny wrote, quote unquote, "Kurt, I can't believe you managed to be in the house without me noticing. You're a fucking asshole for not calling Courtney and at least letting her know that you're okay. She's in a lot of pain, Kurt, and this morning she had another incident and now she's in the hospital again. She's your wife and she loves you and you have a child together. Get it together to at least tell her you're okay or she's going to die. It's not fair, man. Do something now." So the whole fact, so again, there's a lot of suspicion.
Poor Courtney, it's very like,
I don't know. This whole note thing is kind of weird to me that he would do that.
Yeah. Why would he?
Why is he so involved in their relationship? And, you know, or was this a setup?
Well, I mean, was he a huge friend of Courtney's? Didn't seem like it. Like, how often did she talk to Michael DeWitt?
Yeah. I don't think they were like uber close or anything.
I don't know.
So when Tom and Dylan find this note, Tom immediately thought this note was suspicious and he believed that Courtney had told Michael to write this note. And there's a conversation between...
Well, because it wasn't there before.
Right. Yeah. When they were there the first time. So when they come back to search, all of a sudden there's that note there. Mm-hmm. And there's a conversation actually between Tom and Rosemary Carroll, the attorney, talking about how neither of them believe the nanny wrote the note, actually.
When I first found the letter, I had no doubt that Callie had written it, but it still looked strange to me. You know, the letter just didn't make sense. It looked phony.
Right, well, it was not written by, it wasn't a sincere letter.
Right, yeah, it sounded like it was...
I thought Callie wrote it because he knew that Kurt was dead.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I felt. I don't think that he was out at Carnation, and I don't know why Courtney's trying so hard to convince people that he was, and she's got the police convinced because they're saying that that's where they think he was for a couple of days.
You know what's amazing is that he can do this. You know.
So yeah, that's interesting. That even they they really think that's suspicious. That just the tone of it and stuff does kind of sound like he assumed that Kurt was already dead, maybe. But I don't know. So it is weird. It's definitely weird because that's the whole thing with this is the PI and what he finds out with this whole Kurt going missing and stuff is very different from what the police are saying happens with Kurt.
Yeah, and that whole documentary, I feel like a lot of people have seen that and like it just rubs them the wrong way because like you have to take a lot of what the officer says for like if you don't believe him, then you're not going to believe this theory if you don't take him seriously because you have to believe a lot of what he says to like
totally.
And I honestly hate that documentary. Like it has a lot of good information in there, but they have like all these reenactments of everything. Like they literally act out looking for everything and looking in Kurt's house. It's like so tacky. I hate it. But
I mean, that's the hard thing with any of the crime like documentaries, though, is because you have to question their intention for it. Like, are they really just trying to bring truth to the case, or are they trying to make money off of it and try to make a compelling movie?
But I mean, they're not the first ones to make the documentaries. Like that other guy, I can't remember. He made Biggie and Tupac documentary too. The older
Broomfield
guy.
is his name.
Yeah. He's like
Nick Broomfield, I want to say.
It's just like he was running around with a camera in the 90s pretty much.
Yeah.
He made some good shit though.
He did.
Better than the new stuff.
For sure.
At least it was real, not acted out bullshit.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's interesting. If you're interested in this one, I would recommend watching both and see what you think.
Which it's called Soaked in Bleach.
Soaked in Bleach. And then what's the Kurt Cobain one? The other one?
Kurt and Courtney or something.
Kurt and Courtney,
yeah. Like it's on Netflix. And then the other one is on YouTube and it's on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
So they go through the house twice, don't find him. And so they're driving around town, checking various locations where they knew Kurt would go. Oftentimes to meet drug dealers, and again, nothing. Now, this is when we get to Friday, April 8th, 1994. And this is when Kurt Cobain is actually found dead in his house by an electrician named Gary Smith, who was there to install some security lighting when he noticed a motionless body laying on the floor through the doors. And there's
he just to like kind of explain this, like, because everyone's confused about how Michael wouldn't have seen him in the house because he's not in the house. It's like in the garage. They had like a guest house or like a room, a very small little room on top of their garage.
Mm-hmm.
So he was up there, and so according to Courtney and Michael had gone in the house, written that note and shit, and.
No one knew where he was. He was still missing.
He didn't see him because he wasn't in the actual house. He didn't think to look in the garage room.
He had already been dead in the
so who knows how long he was there
of the garage,
which I believe they like gave a time. They estimate how long he was there, right? Didn't they?
Yeah, it was 2 days prior. So he actually died on April 5th.
He was there for a while.
Yeah, it was a couple days.
Yeah, crazy.
They the medical examiner pronounced him dead. So he had been dead for like 2.5 days when they found him. But what's interesting is that they were like, so Dylan Carlson obviously was a good friend of Kurt. He would have known about that spot, which everybody's like, oh, nobody knew it was there. But when you look at the front of the house, the picture of their house and the picture of the garage, there's clearly it almost looks like a little like deck on the top. And then there's a big window, like almost you could walk out of it. It's big.
Yeah,
it looks like there's a room up there.
Yeah.
It looks like there's absolutely room up there. And it's surprising that like Tom, the PI, he claims he didn't know about it because he had never been to the house before.
Yeah.
But Dylan,
the guy he was with, would have known
that there was a spot that Kurt could have been.
And they never went. But we can't really completely tell because, again, I have an image of this guy, Dylan, from the documentary, which was an actor. And the actor was sketch as hell and over dramatic. So
but even in the interview of him, he's
weird. He's weird.
He's questionable.
He kind of looks like a tweaker. He's kind of acting a little strange, but
definitely
what can you do?
I just think it's weird that he wouldn't have even mentioned that, hey, let's go check this other spot in the garage that he could have possibly been in.
Yeah, like if you're his friend, why wouldn't you have done that? Yeah.
Because they could have found him earlier. They could have even maybe prevented it. It might have even been in there if he was going to commit something. They could have went in there when he was about to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that nobody checked that or nobody thought to check that is questionable to me.
Yes.
So on April 8th, the electrician's at the house and he is seeing this clear body on the floor. And that's when he calls the police and reports that it looks like there's a dead body. And the police get there and they say that, the body was in horrible shape and the body was only identifiable by fingerprints.
Oh my gosh.
And so this is one of the big things is like the media spins things because what we find out later is that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I was going to say like how bad, I don't remember it being that bad from what I've read.
So when his body's discovered, he's lying down and he's holding a shotgun between his legs, still holding on to the barrel. So I wanted to just play a clip from this documentary because it's, they explain it very well. And,
yeah, they do.
And we'll talk about why, the evidence behind why this was not a suicide.
Seattle police reports indicate that Kurt Cobain was found with a shotgun upside down, with his left hand grasping the barrel in a vice-like grip known as a cadaveric spasm. Cadaveric spasm is a form of muscular stiffening that only occurs in death. This occurrence is indispensable to forensic investigation as it clearly shows the precise orientation of the deceased at the exact moment of death. In this case, Cobain's left hand gripping the barrel upside down as he was found. This all seems straightforward until you take into account the shotgun shell was found to Cobain's left side, opposite of where we'd expect to find the shell, on Cobain's right side. The exit chamber is clearly on Cobain's right side if it was fired upside down as it was found, and as the cadaveric spasm confirms. Seattle PD explained the illogical trajectory of the shotgun shell by concluding that the shotgun was fired right side up by Cobain. The shotgun flipped upside down, expelling the shell to his left, to finally rest in the position that it was found. This proposed scenario is impossible, not only because shotguns do not flip upside down when fired, it completely ignores the cadaveric spasm that locks the grip, dictating the precise orientation of the shotgun when fired. In order for the scenario the Seattle police stated occurred, Cobain's wrist would have to bend at an angle that is anatomically impossible. The cadaveric spasm shows the precise orientation of Cobain's hand at the exact moment of death. The only way that the shell could end up in the opposite side of the room is if, when the shell was expelled, hit an obstruction on Cobain's right side and ricocheted to Cobain's left side to land on the jacket. The crime scene clearly shows there was no such obstruction, which then puts into question if Cobain truly was alone in the greenhouse when the trigger was pulled.
Okay, so my question with that, the only thing I haven't ever understood about that clip is, or that theory, is that, like, if someone else did it, why was his cadaver hanging on to the gun like that? What did the person set it up afterwards?
Yeah. So here's how I think, and I don't know why they never in this documentary spell out exactly what happens, or what their theory is of what happens. And my theory of what happens is so when they find his body, they find a box, a tin box that has all of the heroin paraphernalia in it, and clearly where he shot up an insane amount, which we'll talk about next. But my theory is that whoever did this may have drug him, put him in there, gave him the heroin, and as he's taking that heroin, set up this and set up the gun, put it in his mouth, because that's where it went into his mouth. That's where the shot went, through the back of the mouth, and they set it up, put his hand on it. Because if he's fucked up, if he's getting high and seeing somebody get fucked up like that, you could easily grab their hand, ball it around it, and literally pull the trigger for him.
You could.
And that could also be why there's no evidence of another person found in there too, as well, as because that person could have used, had gloves, used his arms to do everything on the gun. That's why there was nothing on there, and then did it, and then left.
Yeah, that you definitely makes more sense to me now. You could definitely
set this up.
Definitely.
So, and I mean, to do this by yourself, as the police suggest, would be very difficult. The gun is huge. It's a huge thing. And if you look at the statistics for suicide, the amount of suicides that are committed by a shotgun
versus
are 5%.
That's so small
compared to 80% with a handgun.
Yeah.
If you were planning to commit suicide by a weapon, why would you go the shotgun route?
Yeah, it's so extreme.
It's extreme and very especially if you're going to take heroin beforehand and then shoot yourself. Wouldn't it be easier to just use a handgun versus a giant shotgun between your legs? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But this is the most compelling part of this conspiracy theory, is the amount of heroin that's found in the toxicology report.
I think this is the most compelling piece of evidence, period, in my opinion. I think this is really what gets me.
So that was just Tom Grant talking about, this is him and some experts who were a part of this documentary talking about the heroin. That's super interesting.
The toxicology report from Kurt Cobain's autopsy indicated a heroin blood level of 1.52 milligrams per liter.
5 milligrams will produce a level of 0.035 milligrams.
Most users, even heavy users, only use up to 40 to 60 milligrams in one hit.
So you can see, to reach 1.52 milligrams per liter, you're talking about an amount that would have certainly have exceeded 200 milligrams that were injected into Kurt Cobain.
3 times the amount that would be considered lethal. I think very legitimate questions have been raised about the level of heroin.
We have not in 18 years found a single case where somebody could have the level of heroin in their body that Kurt did and still remain conscious.
70 times the lethal dose for the average person, triple the lethal dose even for the most severe heroin addict. It would have incapacitated him, he would have been unconscious, and then roll down their sleeves, put away the heroin kit, pick up the shotgun, position it backwards, and pull the trigger.
That deals with coordinative functions. How about the emotional aspects of this? Why would he then shoot himself before the drug has had a chance to take effect?
No study that I know of has correlated the use of heroin with suicide.
I cannot think of a case in which I have had someone inject himself with a large amount of heroin and then proceed to kill himself. It just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't fit in with these kinds of situations involving heroin.
These are questions that I think deserve answers, and in fact require answers.
Many of the questions could be answered if the medical examiner's office would make public the autopsy report.
I haven't been able to see the toxicology report or the autopsy report because I haven't had access to review the actual documentation from the authorities.
The autopsy report is public record. Apparently, in this jurisdiction, it is not.
In the case of Kurt Cobain, they should have made them part of the release with the Freedom of Information. Why they didn't do that, I don't know. In hindsight, maybe they should have. We wouldn't be having this discussion today.
That's crazy, man. I mean,
it makes like no sense. It really doesn't.
Why wouldn't he have just taken that much heroin and just overdosed and died and, commit suicide by overdose?
Exactly. Like, why add this whole other element?
It makes no sense whatsoever.
And he just wouldn't have been able to pick up the gun and do that and function and line it up well and even think about it. Like, there's just no way.
And the official report says that his tolerance was insane. So that's why he had to do so much in order to get to a state, where he would do that. But even then, it's like these are medical professionals that are reviewing this, saying that it's almost literally impossible for somebody to do that with the amount of heroin there is, that it would literally render you unconscious.
Right.
So how the hell do you then hold a shotgun and pull the trigger on yourself? And not only that, the lying that happens with the police here. So I think there is some form. I think either the police fucked up majorly with this, and
the initial scene, or they judged the situation too fast. They came into the situation. Right. It was Kurt Cobain. He had a gun. I mean, what else would you think? Like, obviously not right off the bat you think, but like with most people, you'd probably have the police investigate a little more. But I feel like Kurt Cobain had such a reputation, and they just figured he was like a junkie, and like, I've seen a lot of cases where, not all police stations, but some police stations really judge people who use drugs and don't, like Danny Ficky or DJ. I'm sorry, Danny. God, my brain. DJ Ficky. Mm-hmm. His case is the same thing. He,
there's lots
I don't
of
think they
cases
took it seriously, and he's same thing, was shot, and it probably wasn't him that pulled the trigger, but now it's a suicide.
Well, I think it's unfortunate too that in a lot of cases where addicts are, either murdered or they're, called as suicides, the police just don't take it as seriously because they're addicts, and it's unfortunate. I think anybody out there who knows an addict or has been an addict or is an addict knows that the police, for the most part, do have this negative connotation on drug users, and oftentimes automatically assume either the worst about them or that they committed a crime or that they, you know, if it does look like a suicide, they're just going to call it a suicide. And that's what the weird thing about this whole investigation is that the police got there and not only did, you know, the media misreport it, but the police also just straight up lied about what happened.
Right.
And in this documentary, which I think is in this next clip, actually interviewed the officer that was the first one on the scene. And he like can't, and this actually had the Seattle police chief at the time there, who was just talking about how the fact that the autopsy report has never been released. All the files and medical examiner's report has been kept under wraps. It hasn't been released to the public like in many other cases where it's public information. But in this jurisdiction, for whatever reason, they're keeping it tight, locked up so nobody can see or nobody can really question the official story.
Sketchy. That's just weird.
The whole wallet ID thing and the fact that mainstream media reports to this day say that the ID was out of the wallet when they arrived on scene because his body was so unrecognizable. But that is just blatantly false.
Untrue.
Listen to this. This is crazy.
Seattle's own police reports indicate that Officer Lavandowski found Kurt Cobain's wallet lying on the floor. He opened it up, he removed his driver's license, and he put it on top of Cobain's wallet to take a photograph for evidence. Most of the media reported that Kurt left his driver's license exposed, and a lot of them went into a lot of detail that he did that so that everyone would recognize him, but it was completely false.
The news media do poison the atmosphere. And I have been involved in cases in which it was impossible almost to overcome the beliefs that had been created within the community because of the way in which that particular death had been reported.
Judging by the evidence at the scene, Love says, Cobain apparently drew a chair up to a window looking out on Puget Sound, sat down, took some more drugs, picked up his shotgun, and using his thumb, it seems, shot himself in the head. The physical damage was so severe that his body could only be identified by fingerprints.
I was a bit surprised. Normally a shotgun wound to the head, the ones I've seen are pretty devastating, often making facial features unrecognizable. His head was not grossly deformed or badly damaged. I think I certainly would have recognized him. I don't see a reason why anyone wouldn't have who knew what he looked like.
So that was the first responding officer there that said that was completely false, that he was unrecognizable. Yeah. He's like, you could tell who he was.
Yep.
And the ID thing is wrong. And literally, like I just read a Rolling Stone article that talks about this. And still the official story is that
still reports it wrong.
Is not what the actual officer said. But the Seattle police really fucked up on this. And even the chief of police at the time has been like, we need to reopen this case because it's completely fucked it up. It's a complete mess because they allowed Kurt Cobain to be cremated 6 days after being discovered.
Right.
That was the whole thing too, is like they let a patrol officer just rule it as a suicide instead of doing what most departments do and bring the homicide unit detectives in who have experience in investigating this type of case.
Yeah, they judged it early. It looked like a suicide from a rock star that had drug problems and all these issues. So they did exactly what, I mean, if someone set this up, this is exactly what they wanted.
It was a perfect scenario. And that's where the whole conspiracy with Courtney possibly being involved in setting up this, suicide cover-up type thing. There's actually evidence that she communicated with a detective who worked on this case, I believe, Detective Terry something, at the Seattle Police Department. They were friends or maybe even more than that.
Right.
She had a connection there. Mm-hmm. So it's very suspicious. Like she was like that. She was very snaky or she's very snaky with that kind of stuff because the police just totally fucked up with this. They waited 20 days they waited 30 days to process the shotgun for fingerprints, which is absurd. And they gave Courtney Love the shotgun to have it melted down. It's just absurd.
It just makes no sense.
But
why? Literally, why?
Why would you do that?
Why would you melt it down at all?
These experts are like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you just rule this a suicide when clearly things don't make sense? And why wouldn't you at least investigate, the questions around this and figure out for sure that it was a suicide before you just fucking call it a suicide.
Yep.
Because one of the weirdest things about this is the suicide note. So there was a note found next to Kurt, which had a pen through it. And the note stated, speaking from the tongue of an experienced simpleton who obviously would rather be an emasculated infantile complainee, this note should be pretty easy to understand. All the warnings from the Punk Rock 101 courses over the years since my first introduction to the, shall we say, ethics involved with independence and the embracement of your community has proven to be very true. I haven't felt the excitement of listening to as well as creating music along with reading and writing for too many years now. I feel guilty beyond words about these things. For example, when we're backstage and the lights go out and the manic roar of the crowds begins, it doesn't affect me the way in which it did for Freddie Mercury, who seemed to relish in the love and adoration of the crowd, which is something I totally admire and envy. The fact is, I can't fool you, any one of you. It simply isn't fair to you or me. The worst crime I can think of would be to rip people off by faking it and pretending as if I'm 100% fun. Sometimes I feel as I should have a punch-in time clock before I walk out on stage. I've tried everything within my power to appreciate it, and I do, God, believe me, I do, but it's not enough. I appreciate the fact that I and we have affected and entertained a lot of people, and must be one of those narcissists who only appreciate things when they're gone. I'm too sensitive. I need to be slightly numb in order to regain the enthusiasms I once had as a child. On our last 3 tours, I've had much better appreciation for all the people I've known personally and as fans of our music, but I still can't get over the frustration, the guilt, and empathy I have for everyone. There's good in all of us, and I think I simply love people too much. So much that it makes me feel too fucking sad. The sad, little, sensitive, unappreciative Pisces. Jesus, man, why don't you just enjoy it? I don't know. I have a goddess of a wife who sweats ambition and empathy, and a daughter who reminds me too much of what I used to be, full of love and joy, kissing every person she meets because everyone is good and will do her no harm. And that terrifies me to the point where I can barely function. I can't stand the thought of Frances becoming the miserable, self-destructive death rocker that I've become. I have it good, very good, and I'm grateful, but since the age of 7, I've become hateful towards all humans in general, only because it seems so easy for people to get along that have empathy. Only because I love and feel sorry for people too much, I guess. Thank you all from the pit of my burning, nauseous stomach for your letters and concern during the past years. I'm too much of an erratic, moody baby. I don't have the passion anymore, and so remember, it's better to burn out than to fade away. Peace, love, empathy, Kurt Cobain. And then there's a little note at the bottom that says, Frances and Courtney, I'll be at your altar. Please keep going, Courtney, for Frances, for her life, which will be so much happier without me. I love you. I love you. Does that sound like a suicide note to you?
No, it sounds like the first part. Yeah. Like, I mean, it definitely sounds like him in the beginning.
Yes.
Like, and it made a lot of sense, and it lined up a lot with how he was reported to have been feeling at the time about the music industry and stuff. But it seems like a letter just leaving the music industry. Like, he was just like ready to move on with the next. Take a break
from music. Yeah.
Yeah. And he did feel guilty about it because he knew his fans loved him and stuff. But yeah, I feel like some people just aren't meant to be famous, and he's just one of those people who it was really overwhelming.
Too much for him to the point where it wasn't fun anymore. It took the fame took the fun out of it for him, and the passion that he felt for it. And I think he was wanting to walk away from music. Was he wanting to end his life? Maybe. But from that note, I wouldn't get that necessarily. And then the fact that at the very end, if you look at the actual note itself, it's very weird because there's almost a different type of handwriting that's kind of questionable at the bottom, which is the part that is the classic suicide note, like, goodbye, you'll be happier without me, I love you.
And it's only at the end that he says anything remotely that sounds like a suicide letter. Plus, if this was a suicide letter to everyone, not just his fans, why wouldn't he write more to Courtney and his daughter?
Yeah.
You would think that he would write a lot to his daughter. I think she loved his daughter. Why would he leave her with nothing?
Yeah.
Like, he would say, like, something Frances, detailed. This, like, don't do this in your life and remember this. And, I feel like there wasn't enough. It was like so involved when it came to the fans and the music, but then like literally skipped over the rest of his life.
Yeah. It literally looks like somebody found this entry, maybe it was a journal entry or something like that. And then they, wrote in his handwriting or tried to mimic his handwriting at the bottom and then wrote that little last kind of suicide bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And what's also interesting about the suicide note is linguistic experts and handwriting experts have looked at it, and they believe that the handwriting at the bottom is slightly different from the rest of the note, which is interesting because that part is the like classic suicide verbiage, you know, kind of the goodbye and, you know, you're better off without me. And, you know, like you had said, why wouldn't he have written more for his daughter and stuff? It's very fishy for sure. But one of the things that I find interesting is that Tom, the PI, has said that he believes the note may have been written by Courtney, or at least a portion of it, like that bottom portion of it could have been written by her, if this conspiracy is true and she had some part to play in it. A handwriting expert from Oxford University compared copies of Kurt's handwriting to the note and pointed out over a dozen things that didn't match up. So, yeah, I mean, I just think there's a lot of really weird things with the note and with just everything else. So like, if this was a murder, then who did it? You know, like who could have murdered him? And one of the biggest theories is the idea that Courtney hired the nanny, Michael Dewitt, to kill Kurt and then stage it as a suicide, which
I think could have been possible.
Could have done it. I mean, definitely. I mean, he was there.
Yeah.
He would have known about that spot.
And it definitely could be someone that we don't even know of. Like there easily
could be some hired like assassin or something like that she had hired, or somebody completely unrelated. And I mean, I think Dylan's a little sketchy too. I feel like
major.
He may be may know something or know more than he's letting on, because the fact that I don't know. And he was on drugs too. So it could just be he forgot, or he was high when they were searching the house and stuff too, that he didn't notice the garage.
Right.
But yeah, it's really, really crazy, because I think there's a lot of evidence to at least suggest that we need to reopen this case.
Yes.
And we need to investigate the murder aspect of this, which I don't know how much you can do now with all the forensic evidence and his body's cremated.
It'll probably never be done.
And Courtney, right? She's like keeps his shit locked up.
Yep. And she's got like a serious legal team shutting down like so many different projects and talks.
People wanting to do more documentaries on it and explore this more.
You have to tread lightly with her.
But it's so obvious that they were having problems before he died, and he was planning to divorce Courtney.
Yes.
So the motive is there, that she may have wanted him gone so that she could get that wealth and boost in her career. And
well, she would get everything versus getting like half or whatever that
from the divorce
would have worked out. And she would get sole custody of their daughter. I mean, in divorces, there's always plenty of motive, right?
Oh yeah. Then there's that one sketchy guy.
Yes.
Who they think if somebody were to do it, could have been this guy. And his name is El Duce, or Eldon Hokie.
Yeah.
He's like he's like this, I don't know.
I don't even know what
weird
call
band
him.
Dude. He had a rock band called the Mentors.
Yeah, wore like masks, like underwear, and they'd like run around spanking each other. It was like very strange.
Did like straight on porn on stage and stuff. It was weird stuff.
It was some very weird shit.
But he claimed that Courtney asked him to kill Kurt for $50,000. That's why he's a part of this.
Yeah, and he did this video, and he was like sketching while they were recording him. And this was the older documentary I was talking about. And he just straight up found this guy's house and went up there with a camera in his backyard. And he's like, yeah, she offered me $50,000. And he's like, I should have done it.
Yeah, it's like, a really weird clip.
Like he was trying to like make it sound like he didn't do it. But he definitely could not have done it too. But here's the weird thing. 2 days after that clip was taken, he was killed by a train. What the hell?
What are the chances too? That's
like
very
in
weird.
A train with no witnesses. He's just like ended up dead from a train. He could have jumped, I guess, but I don't know. Pretty interesting. So yeah, I feel like there's so many different possibilities with this theory. I really want to know what you guys think of this.
I mean, just Courtney's behavior is sketchy. There was one last thing I just wanted to put in there was the fact that she claimed that she had found a suicide note in a prior suicide attempt of his. And she claims that her attorney told her to burn it. And she did, she said, which why would you?
And why would your attorney advise that?
Right. Why would anyone advise to do that?
Yeah.
So there's just her behavior is sketchy. The way she talks about it is sketchy. And I mean, she doesn't talk about it now.
No.
And if this conspiracy is real, she really set this up and really created this story, this narrative of Kurt Cobain committing suicide, and it stuck. It worked, if that's if suicide is not what had happened, she really could have got away with it. I mean,
she of course says he committed
allegedly
suicide. He sticks to the story.
Right.
Their daughter Frances also sticks to that story, and they're very close still.
Former bandmates, Nirvana, Dave, everybody believes that it's suicide.
Totally like up to the individual to decide. I'm really curious to your guys' opinions on this one, because it's just so,
it could go either way. It's like a perfect storm of different things.
Like there's definitely enough evidence that there could have been a conspiracy, but there also is enough evidence that it really was suicide. Right. So it's a difficult one for sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
the heroin thing
personally,
gets me.
That's what gets me too. Just, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and I think it deserves
suicide note is bullshit. I'm like, it's so weird to me.
I think it deserves to be reopened and looked at from an unbiased
another person's
perspective.
That's like really interesting. Their opinion in this is like Courtney's, I believe, either father or stepfather.
Oh yeah, he had
that
some interesting.
Totally thinks that she did it. He wrote a whole book about how she did it.
He did. That's really interesting.
And like people in her family like just are like, she's awful, pretty much.
I don't know, man.
People don't have very nice things to say about Courtney. There's so much shit about her. So it's interesting.
It's really interesting. And yeah, I mean, let us know what you guys think about this. Like, do you think it was murder? Do you think, he really committed suicide? I mean, I don't know. Either way, it sucks that he's gone, but yeah, I mean, I just want the truth. I want the truth about what happened. And I think there's enough compelling evidence to take a look at things. And again, why isn't the autopsy report or medical examiner report been released? You can't get it. Like, nobody has access to it still.
Yeah,
because that would provide a lot of information. Because a medical examiner is not going to like lie about shit most likely. Right. So there's it might help us put this case to rest. But until then, I think it's kind of an open book, open case. Like, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. Really interesting one though. Yeah, some of these murder conspiracies are just crazy. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of the Mile Higher Podcast. If you did, smash a like on it. If you're on YouTube, be sure to follow us on Spotify and iTunes.
And Instagram at Mile Higher Podcast and Twitter at Mile Higher Pod.
Yeah.
Without the cast.
But yeah, that's it. We'll go and wrap it up there for today. Thanks again for listening. And we will see you guys next week. Stay safe.
And stay woke.
See you guys next time.
This is what he said about his newfound wealth and money.
Yeah, you can't buy happiness. I mean, that made me happy for a little while. But, I mean, I was just probably almost just as happy with, fine. I don't know. I look back on going to secondhand stores and stuff like that and finding a little treasure like that. And that actually meant more to me because it was more of a stab in the dark in a way, because you didn't know if you're going to be able to afford it, and you don't know what you're really looking for, and when you find it, it's more special to you rather than having $1,000 and going into a store like that and just buying the whole store. It's not as special.